Implement logout, and logout is fairly simple. We're going to, on the server side, we're going to be just listening in for a local logout post and handling it in a function of the same name that is just going to invalidate the cookie, right? So that even if somebody has that cookie, it'll be useless. We know that that's an invalid cookie, and we're no longer going to use it going forward. Now on the client side, we're going to generate that logout from the user client. Oops, user client. We're going to generate that that logout. Oops. Copy. So I'm using 3000. 3000 is also a very common port for development. And we're going to send a logout command from the profile. Once we're in the profile, we'll put in a button that kicks off the logout process. So we'll handle the event logout, not that one. Copy. There it is. That will use the user service, which we need to inject here. Private user service of type user service. And we'll need the router so that we can navigate. Router. So we can navigate, and if we log out, we will go back to the login page. Okay? All right, and so the only thing left to do is put a button in the profile page to be able to log out. So let's enhance the profile page and put a button down below that when we click it, we're going to log out. All right, so on the profile page, we now have a logout button that if we log out, it's going out to the server, but the server is not responding, probably because we didn't restart the server. Let's try it again. We click on logout, it goes back to the login page, right? So if we log in as Po, and so this knows that it's us, welcome Po. If we log out, it goes and invalidates that. If we navigate to profile, notice that it doesn't know who we are anymore, right? Because we've logged out, right? Even though it doesn't know who we are, it still lets us go to the profile page, right? So we should protect the profile page, so you should not be able to navigate when we don't know who you are. And so let's do that next. So to do that, we need to always verify this with the server. Yes. Yeah, we should remove that. Yeah, from the client, from the server side, right? When we query the user, we should remove it. I'm sorry. From the client side, when you file a login request. Yep. You can see the body of the request. Yeah. That's that. So typically this would be using HTTPS, and we're not using HTTPS. So passport doesn't do that. No, that's not a passport thing. It's a network configuration. It's a server configuration, which would encrypt not only that, it would encrypt any request that goes with HTTPS would be encrypted. Typically, you would not encrypt everything because it's very expensive to encrypt things. You would only encrypt when you have passing around some sensitive information, right? Like login. Yeah. Yes, right, exactly. Yep, that should be encrypted. Also on MongoDB, you can see the password. Yeah, we'll fix that in a minute. Okay. Yeah, we'll fix that in a minute. All right, so So here we were kind of relying on the client to remember that you're logged in, right? We're using the shared service. But instead, we should always check with the server. Are they really logged in? Right. So to do that, we're going to add a query to the server to validate if indeed they are indeed logged in. So to do that, we're going to create a request to the server to verify that indeed this folk is logged in. Is going to check with password. Is this person logged in? Is there a session still valid? And if so, then return the user. Otherwise, I'll return a 0. Or anything you agree on the client side that means to you something that person is not logged in or is an invalid user. So from on the client side, what we could do is that we can on the user service we can implement it to call the server, right, and check to see. Go out to the server and check to see if it's logged in, and then if it's different than 0 or whatever you decide that is not valid, then we're going to store it in the shared servers. Otherwise, we're just going to kick you out to login, right? If it comes back as you're not logged in. So let's inject those two services, the shared service and the router, in the constructor. So we'll have a private shared service, and we'll need also private with the router. Both we're going to inject in here. And there they are. And so once we've done that, once we have the logged in, we can then protect any page, any component that we're trying to navigate to, to see if they are allowed to go there, right? Meaning, go and check to see if they're logged in, and then let them through, right? And in this case, it's a profile page, but most pages, maybe the home page, the about page, the contact page, most of them are public, should be public pages, right? That we should not check to see whether they're logged in or not, right? But certain pages we do want to protect, in particular the profile. So the way we're going to do this is that we're going to create a service that is going to encapsulate the fact that to answer the question, are they logged in? Which is going to underneath is going to use the logged in query we just implemented. So to do that, we're going to create a brand new service, the authentication service, that is going to implement a function. This is going to implement an interface, okay, that implements a particular function called the can activate, right? So that we can then put this service in front of any route that we want to protect. Right, that we wanted to go check to see if they're logged in. If they are, then they're going to let them through. Otherwise, they're not. So basically, what we want to do is go back to the profile, the route for the profile, which is somewhere here in the routing. Right now, it's not protected. Right, you can just go there. Right. Instead, what we want to do is put here a can activate. Right. We want to put here some rules that. Yes, I can activate that route only if the following is true. Right? Only if the following is true. So it's an array, so you could put several conditions. Are you logged in? Are you an admin? Right? So I could put several rules, and if all those are true, then I can navigate to the profile page. Right? So here, what we need to put is a service. A service here that implements that can activate interface, right? And we'll call the can activate function on that service, right? So let's implement that service. Let's implement the service here on the client. So we'll call it TS. This will be an authentication service. This could be called anything. Authentication.service.server. And I'm just going to copy and paste this. Oh, well, not that one. Where is it? Here it is. So this is going to use the user service, which is not implemented in there. It's actually, where is it? It's in user service. There it is. Okay, there we go. And what it's going to do is notice that it's implementing this this interface, and that interface implements that function. If I remove that function, it's going to complain, saying, "Hey, that interface has that particular function. If you're implementing that interface, you have to implement that function." And that function just returns whatever logged in returns. Okay. In our case, it returns either true or false. True or false. Okay. And can activate will be, we can now use that. Well, we need to declare it as we need to declare it as a provider in app modules. App modules, where are you? Here, you have to declare that. In imports. And now we can go back to the routing and say, okay, this is the authentication service, which is right here. So depending what it says, whether you can navigate there or not. So this will call the can activate function on that service. The service will go out to the server. The server will check to see if logged in, and then this will return the true or false, right? And you can have several of these services there. They all have to come back as true. If anyone says false, then you cannot navigate, right? They all have to agree that you have to go in there. Okay, and notice that this could be all asynchronous, right? I can go and check to see that can I navigate and buy my ticket to Los Angeles? Well, yes, if you have a car and you have a hotel and then I want to go and buy the ticket, right? So, but if I don't have those two things, I don't want to buy a ticket because I don't have a place to stay. I don't have a way to get around, right? So I can go and query several queries, right? Several services, and if the services says it's okay and my logic says it's okay, they can all return true, and then it navigates me back to okay, now you can pay for your ticket. Yes, right? And they can all be asynchronous, which is pretty cool. All right, so that's that. Let's restart the server. Well, did we do the server side? I forget. I believe we did, right? On the server, we do logged in. Yeah, very good. Okay, so we can restart this. And let me see if I forget it. If I got anything. Authentication service. All right, let's try that. Let's navigate here. And let's now refresh and go to login. So that's login. So now it should not let me go to profile. Notice that it doesn't let me navigate to profile anymore. Right? It kicks me out. Notice that every time I try to go to profile, it goes out to logged in. Right? And logged in comes back with 0. No, nobody's logged in. Right? So I won't let you go through. Make sense? Now if I log in as PO, right, and then I navigate back to login, I can still go to profile. Right? It goes out to the server. The server says logged in. Now comes back with a user. Right? If I log out, notice I can go back and forth between profile and login. Right? But if I log out, it kicks me out to a login, and I can no longer navigate to the profile anymore. Right? Because it's going out to logged in. It's coming back with wait a minute. Profile. It goes out to logged in, and it comes back with 0. I don't have a user, and it doesn't let me go through. Make sense? Right? All right, so let's keep going. The other thing is that not only do I want to protect you from navigating to a particular page. I also want to be able not be able to, for instance, query some URLs, right? If I have Poster, right, or Postman, right, I could query your APIs and retrieve some information, right? So that we need to protect that as well. Not only do we need to protect a page, you navigating to certain places, but also disallow you from using several APIs. For instance, if the model would have this use case where we can retrieve all the users. For instance, if we have user find all users, would we want everybody to have access to that? Probably not. Only if you have an admin role, maybe you should be allowed to see the list of users, perhaps, right? But not if you're not a user, not if you're an admin user. Yes. So we would like to protect this API. So let's create the API first. Let's on the service side, let's map it to say API admin user, and that is going to try and go fetch all the users from the model. Right. So this goes out to the model, finds all the users, and it returns it. So if that's true, if I restart this, anybody who has this here, right? Anybody could do a localhost 3000, right, and get a list of all the users, right, with their passwords and everything. Okay, so we certainly want to protect this, and says, well, not everybody should be allowed to go there, right? Only if you're logged in, and not only if you're logged in, if you have a particular role. Okay, so how do we do that? So what we want to be able to do is, well, first let's go to the user client, and let's implement this access, programmatic access to this. So let's go to a service client here, and let's implement this access to find all users, right? 3000 API admin user, very good, and an admin user should be able to retrieve that. And since we're working with users, let's create a model, right, that keeps track of users. So let's create a model here on the client side. So let's see, service. This would be models. But these are models on the client side. These are not models on the server side, right? And in our models, we'll have our user model here. So TypeScript, this will be user.model on the client. Right? Not user.model on the server. This is on the client side. It's a TypeScript. And it looks something like this. And probably we want also roles, which is an array of strings. Yes? Okay. All right. So we have that. So what we would like to be able to do on an admin component, let's create an admin component that allows us to list the users. Yes. So let's create a component for that. So let's see, where are we? So let's do ng generate a component, admin user list component. Okay. All right. So let's fill it up with this. Let's go in there. It should be in the components. There it is. And so I'm going to, what do we have in there? Let's bring in the user service. We'll need the user service, so let's inject that. And let's load that user service. Let's inject it. Okay, there it is. Okay, what else do we need? It's going to load when we navigate to this user list component. Is going to use the user service to retrieve all the users, right? On init, fetch me all the users. Okay, fetch me all the users and store them in a local array of users, right? That we're going to store here locally. So this will be users, which is a user array. Okay. I think that's it. I think that's all we need. And then we can just iterate over those users in the HTML. So let's go to the HTML, and here we can copy user lists, so that if we navigate to the user lists, we'll probably need to create a route for that, right? So let's create a route for the admin. I think I have it here. Did I create one? Yeah, there we go. So let me create a route for my admin user, and let's load that component so that if I now navigate to admin user, it comes back with those 4 users we've been playing around with, right? Poe, Charlie, Bob, and Alice. Okay. So anyway, should everybody be able to see this? No, right? Only if you're an admin. So we want to do something similar to what we did for the profile. We want to protect this URL, and we already know how to protect it with authentication. So notice that even if I'm not logged in, so say I log in as Poe, right, and I log out. So I certainly can't go to profile, right? I can't go to profile. It kicks me back, right? But I can't go to profile, but I can certainly go to the admin user and list all the users. All right, so I can certainly protect it just by adding this one line here, right? I can just protect it like this. I can just say can activate. You have to at least be authenticated, right? At least you have to be logged in. Right, so now if I do that and I try to navigate to admin user, it kicks me back to login, right? Because at least it's checking to see if I'm logged in, right? But I want it to be actually a little more than that. Right, because if I log in as Poe, who's not an admin, Poe can go to admin user and see the list of users. That's not right. Right? So we wanted to give it a little more depth to that. So let's change this a little bit and let's protect the admin. So instead of just protecting it with check logged in, let's implement another one. Let's check to see if you're an admin. Right? So to do that, let's go back to the service on the server, right? And let's create another admin API is admin, okay? Which is not only going to check to see if you're logged in, but it's also going to check to see if the user roles, index of admin, right, is greater than -1, meaning is admin in that array of roles. Okay, and if that's true, then yes, we'll return the user. Otherwise, 0. Right. So now that we have that, we can go back to the client side. We can go back to the client side and do the same thing we did with check logged in, right? On the client side, just what we did with logged in, we can just now. Let me see. I copied. Here we can say is admin, which is going to go out to the server. It's going to check to see if it is. Then I'm going to let you go through. Otherwise, I'm going to kick you back to login. Right. So very much what we did with logged in. But this is not only checking whether you're logged in, you're also checking the role. Right. Now that we have that, we can create an admin service client as opposed to just an authentication service client. So let's build that, which is going to do the same thing as the authentication service, right? It's going to implement the can activate. Okay. So let's do that. Let's create another service here. Service, and this is the what do we call it? Admin service client. So admin service client. And it's going to be this. It's going to use a user service, and it's going to call isAdmin. Now, and we need to declare this in the we need to declare it as a provider in the modules. So let's do that. Let's create a modules. So let's create a modules. And this is the admin service client. And we need to declare this in the on the we need to declare it as a provider in the modules. So let's do that. Let's create a modules. And this is the admin service client. And we need to declare it as a provider in the modules. let's go in the modules. I wish it would do it for us, but it doesn't. So here's a provider, and we need to load that. Now that we have it, we can now protect. Now we can protect the admin users with the can activate admin service client. All right, so let's go. If we go to the routing, we go back to the routing. Instead of the authentication service, we're going to use the admin service client, right? Okay. Now if we restart the server and we go back to here and we go to log in, right? Well, first let's check to see if I can still go to users. Okay, I can't go to users. But notice it's going to is admin. Is admin is coming back with 0. See that? Which makes sense. If I log in as PO, it logs me in. Presumably, I should not be able to go to admin user. Notice that it kicks me back to log in. Right? It says, no, you can't go there. You're not the right person. I can still go to profile, but I'm still logged in as PO. Right? So it's not letting me go to the is admin, which is good. But we haven't yet protected the URL. Notice that the URL is still wide open. I can still go to the URL, even though I'm not an admin. I'm nothing, right? So we want to protect that URL, even though I can't go. I can't get at it through the API through the user interface, right? I have successfully protected the user interface, but somebody could, try and poke at the URLs, right, with Postman, right, and see if there's any vulnerability. Are there any URLs that are open, right, that I can exploit? So I definitely need to protect this URL. So to do that, we could do pretty much the same thing here. We can implement here a check admin, which is it does pretty much the same thing as what we did earlier, right? In the server, right? Just like we were protecting the checking to see is admin. I could do one that is more generic. I could take this as a function, right? That I can reuse, right? Or I can be lazy and I just implement it again. And now check is admin. What this function can do, obviously it's going to check to see the authentication, but I can now use that function and put it in front of my API admin user. See that? I can put that function right in front of it. And what this is going to do is it's just like Passport is intercepting our request, right? We are going to intercept that request, right, that is coming in, and we're going to handle it. Just like Passport handles its own things, we can do the same thing. If there's a request, the normal user, the happy path is that I just return all the users. Yes? Right? But I can intercept it and run some logic, right? And in this particular case, what I'm doing is that the request that was intended for the if find all users, it's actually I'm gonna get it, right? I'm gonna get it right here. Also, the response that find all users was gonna get, I get it. Okay, and now I can do a couple things. One of the things that I could do is maybe abort the request and say no, something went wrong, right? I don't want this request to go through, right? Because you don't meet some requirements, right? So for instance, I can check to see if you're authenticated, check to see if you're an admin role. Well, actually, it's not that, right? It's this over here. Where is it? This, right? It's an array now, right? It's a little more sophisticated. If you're authenticated and you are an admin, then I'm going to say next. Next means whoever was next in the request, in the HTTP request sequence, right? In this case, the one next is find all users. Find all users was next after me. So the request and response that were originally intended, right, are just going to be passed along to the next event handler. In this case, find all users. Otherwise, if this is not true, I'm going to respond. I'm going to abort the request. Right? I'm not going to let it go through to my find all users. I'm going to come back with unauthorized, right? Which I think is 401, not 403. Right? It's going to come back with a 401 to the client. So let's try that now. Let's refresh the page, refresh the server, and now if I go back and notice that now if I try to access the list of users, right, it comes back with unauthorized. See that, right? Even if I log in, even if I let's see, I go to profile. Even if I log in as Po, and I'm logged in, right? And I try to well, obviously I can't navigate to admin user, right? I can't navigate to here, but notice that trying to access, even with logged in, it doesn't work, right? All right, so let's try this by adding admin to Po. Right, so let's do that. So let's see. Let's see in Mongo. So Mongo says that Po is currently a faculty. So let's update Po. Let's do a db.usermodels.update, and we'll update the user whose username is Po. Oops. Oh, let me copy that. Po. And I want to set the roles. I want to set them to not only faculty. I could have pushed it, I guess. Faculty and admin. Okay. So let's see if that worked. Okay. So now we see that Po has both. Has faculty and admin, right? Okay, so if that's true, let's restart the server, and let's check this now. So notice that nobody's logged in. Let's try logging in. If I try to read this, it's going to kick me out to log in. If I log in as Po, and I log in, notice that now I do have access, right? Because now there's a cookie. The browser has a cookie, and if Po logs out, I no longer have access to that URL, right? Only if there's a valid cookie and whatnot, right, that maps to somebody who has an admin role can access that, right? That makes sense? So very, very important. Typically in a server-side application that using PHP, JSPs, ASP, all those server-side web applications, typically is enough to just protect the navigation to a page, because everything's done on the server side. Right here, right, the application is kind of split. Half of it is running on the browser, half of it is running on the server, right? So the browser doesn't know, right? It always has to go back to the server for any data, right? As opposed to on a server side application, everything's on the server, right? Everything is rendered on the server, so it's readily available. Whereas on the client side, we don't have that. So all the data lives on the server. Everything I need to go back to the server for any data. So we need to protect all those URLs as well. Okay. All right, great. We have one last vulnerability, and it's that all these passwords are being stored in the database in the clear. Right. We can see here in that we can read all those passwords. Right, and that's a vulnerability that we need to check. Even if you're an admin and you're looking at this database, they should not have access to the password. Only the original user who created it should, only in their memory should the password live. Right, not visible to anybody. So to do that, what we're going to do is that we're going to make use of a library that can encrypt the. Oops, are we in the right place? I don't know if it's installing in the right place. Okay, while that's happening, let's load the bcrypt in the user service. And what we're going to do is that, let's load it right here. Did it end? Okay, I think it did the right thing. So it's going to load that library. And the only real thing that we're going to do is that when we register, before storing the password, we're going to hash it. We're going to hash it using a one-way hash. Right? There's no way to unhash it. Right? There's no way to retrieve the password ever. Right? So there's no way for the admin to say, oh well, no, I'll decipher it, and there's only one way. So what we're going to do is that in the registration, on our register, right? We have our password, and we're going to change the password. We're going to use bcrypt to hash it, and we're going to reset it and then store it. Right? So let's try that. So let's refresh. Let's restart the server, here let's go to our register, and let's create Joe. And register. That didn't seem to work. Wait a minute, what happened here? Let's see what happened in the database. Okay, notice that Joe's password is now encrypted. Okay, can't read it. But notice that it did not log us in. Something happened, right? So we didn't actually complete what we needed to do. So yes, it's being stored correctly, but somewhere we missed a step. Typically in the So in the notice that the what happens is that I believe our logic when we log in, right? It checks, still checking. It's still not using the encrypted version of the password, right? It's not checking to see whether the password. There's no way for it to compare the password because it's comparing a password that is in the clear, trying to compare it with something that is encrypted. So we're going to need, we're going to implement, we're going to change our logic a little bit, and for this, we're going to need an extra function in the model to go fetch users using username instead of credentials. What we're going to do is that we're going to go find the user by username. Once we have the user, we're going to take a look at that encrypted password and check to see if the password they're giving us, if we encrypt it, whether they match. Right? So let's do that. So let's grab the user by username first. So here it is. It's implemented. Once we have the username, we're going to replace in our local strategy. We're going to change it a little bit. Instead of comparing the credentials, right? We're going to first fetch the username. Right, in the user service, we're gonna go the local strategy. Where is it? There we go. So instead of using the find by credentials, we're gonna find by username, using the username that was being passed to us. Yes. Okay. And what we're gonna do is that we're gonna compare the username, whether username is still good, but instead of comparing the password, because the password that is coming in from the client, whatever they typed, is clear text. Right, we need to encrypt it, right, and then compare it against what's stored in the database. Right, if they match, then it must be the same person. The password must match, right? But there's no way to unencrypt the password that's in the database and compare it with the clear text. See that? We need to encrypt what's coming in from the client and then compare what's stored in the database, right? Let's see. So user here is coming with a user that we found in the database, right? And we want to encrypt this password that is coming from the client and compare those two. So to do that, the bcrypt library has a function for that. And we're going to replace this comparison with bcrypt.compare, right? And what this is going to do is it's going to take the clear text password that comes from the client, is going to encrypt it and compare it to the password that is in the database, right? And if those match, then you are logged in. So let's try that. Let's try that. Anything else? Let's see. I guess we didn't get to Facebook. All right, so let's go back here and try to log in again. So we created who do we create? Joe, right? So Joe and Joe. Okay, so that worked, right? So it's comparing that user. Notice that older users like Poe, There's no way to compare Poe because Poe has an encrypted password stored in the database, right? So you got to be careful if you have, if you implement bcrypt before and after, right? So users before having implemented bcrypt will have unencrypted passwords. You'll need to go back and retroactively encrypt them, right, and restore them back in the database, right? Otherwise, half of a user will be able to log in and half of the one will not be able to log in. So you have to be careful there, right? Okay, so I'll leave it here.